Hi, my name is Dermot Craig. I am an individual in long-term recovery from addictive behaviour and I reside in Aberdeen, Scotland. As March is International Women's Week, I wish to take this opportunity to introduce you to an amazing, courageous woman who is truly inspirational to me, but also hundreds of thousands of others for the work she did in promoting the cause of addiction and recovery therefrom. Margaret Marty Mann was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1904. Later in her life, and following a number of years battling with alcohol, she stepped through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1939. Although not the first female member of AA, and who openly admitted to episodes of lapse in her early recovery, Marty Mann is considered as one of the first women to achieve long-term sustained sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. Marty wrote the chapter Women Suffer Too, which is published in the second through fourth editions of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill Wilson was her sponsor, and she is recognised as a founding member of AA. What is not maybe so widely known or celebrated is that Miss Mann was the first lesbian member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this was at a time when identifying as being gay or lesbian was not socially accepted, often vilified, and regularly scorned by society. In addition to the above courageous, admirable attributes, as well as her groundbreaking innovation, Marty also made best use of her skills and experiences in marketing and publicity to become a very active voice for recovery, and was definitely what we may term as a proactive recoverist today. I hope the following short clip will give evidence and a flavour of Marty's passion and commitment.
Alcoholism has too long been a taboo subject, just as tuberculosis used to be 40 years ago. We're trying to teach people the truth, that alcoholism is a disease, and that because it is a disease, it should have no stigma attached to it.
Marty Mann was doing recovery advocacy for many, many decades, and she was Bill Wilson's sponsee. She had Bill Wilson's blessing in doing the work she was doing, educating communities about the realities of alcoholism, and had really sort of set the stage for a lot of recovery advocacy that happened a few decades later.
Marty got sober after just horrendous time with alcohol and not understanding it was a disease. And she began traveling around the country with Dr. Bob and Bill W. And she experienced the stigma, no programs, no services for alcoholics and their families. And she said, this is terrible, we need to do something about it. And Bill and Dr. Bob said, we can't, but you can.
Alcoholics should be dealt with like other sick persons, in hospitals and clinics, not in jails. Alcoholism, America's fourth greatest public health problem, can be solved by community action. The National Committee stands ready to help your community plan such action.
Marty's thrust was always to gain wide public understanding and support for alcoholism to be seen as a disease. During the mid-1940s, and in pursuance of this goal, she formed what eventually became the National Council on Alcoholism, while utilising the Yale School of Alcohol Studies to substantiate and establish scientific legitimacy for the disease concept. This is maybe not a model that everyone concurs with, but I suggest that it is from these foundational efforts by people like Marty and the work of the NCOA, which ignited over 5 decades ago, the movement that allows us today the recognition where addiction is seen as a human health issue rather than a criminal justice one. In furtherance of the aims of the National Council on Alcoholism, Marty travelled across the US, educating medical professionals, legislators, businessmen, and the public to the importance of treatment and education of the fatal disease of alcoholism. Over the following 2 decades, this movement developed a huge amount of traction, and in 1976, it organised an event where 50 celebrities and professionals gathered to address the social stigma surrounding alcoholism. This audience included A-list actors, politicians, sports legends, physicians, lawyers, clergy, and more, all who stood up in the hotel ballroom and acclaimed, "I am an alcoholic." It was through the support of these equally courageous individuals and their willingness to stand up on the public stage and say, yes, I too suffered from the disease of alcoholism, that went a great way in altering the public perception of alcoholism and reducing the levels of social stigma surrounding alcoholism and encouraging individuals and their family to seek and engage in treatment. Marty also hoped to raise the social awareness that alcoholism is not a moral weakness, but a deadly disease. Sadly, open participation by these respected individuals was brought to a terminating halt by the introduction by the Bush and Reagan administrations of the war on drugs, leading to these high-profile entities running for the hills and disassociating themselves from the blossoming recovery movement and any association to addiction, whether this be through alcohol or drug use. The result being that the movement went underground and public attitude was encouraged to scorn the individual whose life had been shattered by addiction and term them as being morally weak rather than physically and mentally ill. So it's with great pleasure that I take this opportunity to let everyone know about this woman, Marty Mann, and hope that others may also be encouraged by her courage to voice their experience and hope that others too can recover.